Every season of Survivor is a story. There are main characters, sidekicks, comic reliefs, and villains. A good season of Survivor tells a good story. It will grip you and have you rooting for someone and against someone else. You will want to tune in episode after episode to see what happens next until it all finishes with a hopefully satisfying conclusion. Each story that we look at together will go through one character's journey from beginning to end. From the time that they are introduced until they inevitably get their torch snuffed or win the game. We will look at every character moment and strategic move to determine whether they were a hero or a villain and whether they were a good or bad strategist. With that, welcome to Once Upon an Island. For reference, we will only be observing what the TV show is showing us and what story is being told through the show. No future seasons will be mentioned, as the characters and story here have no idea and therefore are unaffected by those future seasons. All character moments and strategic moves are interpreted with the mindset of what the story is trying to tell us. And before we start, I want to thank you all for supporting this channel. If you want to see these videos weeks before they're ever released here on YouTube, then consider supporting this channel on Patreon. You can also vote for which survivors I tell the stories of, like this one, and even get an exclusive Patreon-only video each month about the topic of your choosing. Thank you for your support.
39 days, 16 people, 1 survivor.
Christy Smith, a 24-year-old children's adventure guide, was a castaway on Survivor's 6th season Survivor the Amazon. She was the first ever deaf player in the game. So how does a deaf person survive in a strategically social game like Survivor? Let's find out. Survivor the Amazon finally did what Survivor Thailand simply teased. They split up the tribes by gender. Christy is of course put on the all-women's tribe, Jabiru.
Christy.
When Jeff called the 5th girl, I knew it like instantly. This is an all-woman tribe.
It's an all-chick thing. We can let our hair down. We can pee in front of each other.
One of the biggest questions is how will Christy be able to pull off playing the game of Survivor despite being deaf? Well, as it turns out, she's really good at reading lips, and she can hear just a little bit. So as soon as the women arrive at their camp, Christy wastes no time telling them about her disability and clarifies that she doesn't want the men to know about it.
I think it's something that every tribe member should know, and I want to try my best to keep it from the other tribe members, but I am deaf. I can't hear. I have a hearing aid in my one ear.
Our first reaction to this is Jenna, who says she isn't sure how this is going to work out, which is not a good sign.
I'm just wondering how she's going to be able to work with a group when she can't really hear well. I don't know how it's going to work out. I really don't.
There are two trains of thought when it comes to revealing this kind of information. Number one is that if you reveal it right away, you are making this people's first impression of you, whether it's good or bad. However, if you wait, it could be seen as deceptive that you held back such a vital piece of information about yourself from the others. But that also has them forming their first impressions of you based on you as a person and not you with your disability. In this case, Christy chose the first option, and even she admits that this is possibly a mistake, but she felt like she had to tell them.
I kind of told them at the wrong time, but I needed to get it off my chest. Like I just couldn't keep it in any longer.
We move to nighttime and everyone is talking, but there isn't enough light for Christy to be able to read their lips. She has a breakdown about all of this, and it makes her very sympathetic.
I can't see, can't read their lips. Of course, I'm in a group of girls who like to talk and talk and talk and talk, you know, so it's like, I could never be like them because I'm not. I'm always totally different, always have been.
However, sympathy won't get her to the end and win, and what is interesting is while we hear her say she is missing information about what the women are talking about, when we actually hear what the women are saying, all they're talking about is food, and Jenna's telling some pointless story.
I said no! Are you on your mind? No, I'm not eating someone else's order.
Nothing truly game-changing, and Christy will have to push through the victim mindset she is in if she wants to take the reins and win. The next morning, the women are getting to work, and Christy has no idea what's going on and feels very left out. Once again, it makes you feel very bad for her.
They all kind of started had this mission or whatever, and I was like, man, what's going on? Doesn't anybody care that I'm the only one out here, you know?
However, she is going to need to adapt and ask everyone what is going on so she could be part of the group's activities and not be left out, which she is here. This is followed up by Heidi saying she hasn't bonded with Christy due to the communication barrier, and this makes Christy a liability.
I haven't really bonded with Christy just because of the communication barrier. That is definitely more of a liability right now.
Christy explains how this is not new to her life, and this is just a daily struggle for her.
It's not like this is new to me. This is what a deaf person has to go through. It's an everyday struggle.
The women win immunity, so they are safe from tribal council. And after the first episode, we have seen how Christy Smith is very sympathetic and clearly has an uphill battle due to her deafness. But no one is going to cut her any slack in this game for $1 million. So she will need to push through the feelings of being left out to make sure she is included and a part of the strategic and social gameplay, or she may end up being left out entirely. Episode 2 kicks off and Christy is once again feeling left out at night since no one else is making an effort to make sure there's enough light on their face so that Christy can read their lips. We don't see Christy asking anyone to do this for her either.
When it gets dark in the Amazon, it's not like dark in the city. It's you can't see where you're going.
I can't see, can't read their lips, and I can't hear. I'm totally out of the group.
Jean tells Christy she'll catch up on the gossip that happens at nighttime and tells her how Joanna is scared of the tribal immunity idol. Christy says that is stupid, which is what most people would think when learning that information, but it's probably not best to say it out loud, and Christy does, which gets Joanna very mad as she overhears Christy saying it, and they get into an argument.
Because I'm going to shut you down with my hand.
Okay, so now I know.
You're going to get the hand to somebody else.
Excuse me, we both made a mistake. I said
But
that.
my
You put a
mistake
hand in my
came
face,
after
so-
your mistake.
After the immunity challenge loss, Christy is working around camp and berates her fellow tribe mates by calling them lazy.
I need a volunteer to help me put this up so we can build a shelter. I think my tribe is the most laziest group I've ever been involved with.
She seems to be right about them being lazy considering how little of a shelter they have built in comparison to the men's tribe, but she shouldn't be getting onto them right to their faces.
I took a break from cutting down palm trees so that I could sleep on the bed, and Christy went off on Jenna and Heidi and Shyla and I.
Later on, in a response to what Christy said, Dina brings in a bunch of supplies and tells Christy now she can build the shelter. She does this with a bit of attitude though, but then Christy says she doesn't want to build anymore, now she wants to fish.
Okay, there you go, Christy.
What?
Build away.
I don't want to build. I want to go fishing.
See?
Which causes a lot of frustrated reactions from the others. Christy is completely misreading what seems to be obvious social clues and is clearly grading on the others.
I gave up on working with the tribe.
However, Christy then backs this up by saying that Jenna hasn't said a word to her for the first 5 days, which is terrible.
I'm automatically rejected. I mean, Jenna hasn't even said a word to me this whole 5 days.
Dina then tells us that if Christy is voted out next, it will be due to her personality and attitude, not because she is deaf. Christy is going to have to put in even more work now to dig herself out of this hole that she is in.
If Christy gets voted out tonight, it's going to be because of her personality and her attitude, not anything to do with her handicap or her disability.
At Tribal Council, Jeff asks what can be done at camp that can be done just better in general. Christy says the shelter should have been done days ago, and she is right. Joanna disagrees though, and Christy says she was working and the others were being lazy. Once again, Christy is very forward about her feelings, but she needs to filter what she says and how she says it, as it is clearly annoying the others.
I think the shelter should have been built days ago.
Joanna, you're shaking your head. No.
Somebody asked her about completing the shelter and she was like, no, I want to go fishing.
Jeff then asks Christy if she feels excluded due to her being deaf, and she says yes. Now this is partially true. What seems to be happening is that there isn't clear communication between her and the others, which is causing her to be very frustrated, which she is then expressing to the others, and they view it as her simply having an attitude. It is easy to sympathize with Christy, but she is in a deep hole here.
Do you feel excluded?
Yes.
Do you think it has to do with that you're deaf?
Yes.
During her emotional moment with Jeff, she berates the others by saying they are lazy. It's completely unnecessary.
I worked hard. There are people sitting down doing nothing, and here I am trying to put a shelter together, and I get no help, no support. I ask questions, I got no answer.
In a 5-to-1 vote, Christy is not voted out, but Janet is.
Janet, the tribe has spoken.
We move into episode 3, which is fairly quiet for Christy. The women bathe down at the river, and Christy observes how the women her own age don't want to bathe with her, so she pokes fun at them.
When we were bathing, I bathed with Jeannie and Dina. Wash and be pretty and check each other out. You're like, oh, do I have like these dirty spots?
Heidi then tells us that this bathing split is not based on age, like Christy had thought, but based on looks, which is much, much worse and paints Christy as much better, as Heidi is very shallow.
Because we're younger and we're cuter, we've got better bodies, and for some reason that's like a huge issue with older people. We don't have these older women judging us, telling us what we should and shouldn't be doing.
The women win immunity and are safe in episode 3. Episode 4, though, is a different case, as the women lose immunity, and Christy is being flaky as to who she wants to vote for. Jenna wants Christy to vote for Joanna, and Christy tells us that she sees Joanna as a benefit to the tribe.
Christy's kind of like our wild card. It's important for me and Dina and Heidi to get Christy to vote on our side.
At tribal council, she does end up voting with the majority for Joanna, and Joanna is eliminated 4-2 to 1.
Joanna, the tribe has spoken. It's time for you to go.
It is episode 5, and Christy is moving on up as a tribe swap occurs, and she moves to the new Tamaki, which includes her, Jean, Heidi, Roger, Butch, and Dave. Heidi and her have not gotten along so far, but her and Jean have, so this is possibly a good thing based on how the men receive her. Upon arriving at the new Tambaki camp, she immediately tells them that she is deaf, and Roger is impressed because he had no idea until she told him that. He did not notice this at any of the challenges.
Just to let you guys know, since we're in a circle, I am deaf. So you just gotta look at me, talk to me. When I say what, please say it again.
Also very surprised in how well she is doing. I never would have guessed that she was deaf by watching the other tribe.
Her first night at the new Tambaki is a night and day difference in terms of how they treat her, as they make sure she has enough light at night for her to be able to read their lips and participate in their conversation. She feels truly accepted here.
The one thing I like about this tribe is they're very aware that, okay, we got somebody who's deaf, and they really try to make sure I'm looking.
I'm making an extra effort to make sure that she knows what's going on. I'm making sure that she, sees me. At night we can make the lantern a little brighter.
However, right after this, she dumps on her old Jabiru tribe mates about how they didn't care about her as much, and Heidi and Jean are sitting right there to witness all of this.
Really glad to be in a group where this lantern is useful. In that Jabiru tribe, it was not even, it was never possible.
They lose immunity, and going into tribal, it seems like there will be a tie vote between the 3 men and the 3 women, though they aren't targeting Christy, which is good. As Jeff reads the votes,
5th person voted out of the Amazon. Jean, need to bring me your torch.
Jean is surprisingly voted out 4-2, as Heidi actually flips and leaves Christy in the dark. Thankfully, though, she survives over Jean.
Jean, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 6 brings an interesting reward challenge into the mix. Essentially what happens is 2 castaways face off on a spinning log that requires strength, coordination, and some strategic play. Christy faces off against Jenna for the first time, and
Jenna in the water first. Tambaki scores, takes the lead.
hey, she gets her in the water first and gets the lead up to 3-2. However, both tribes tie things up, and Christy once again faces off against Jenna. This one is for all the marbles. It's do or die for the reward. And
Come on, Jenna. You got it. Tambaki wins reward. Nice job, Tambaki.
that is right, Tambaki wins a reward, but more importantly, Christy wins it for her tribe. Back at camp, Butch is loving how Christy won that reward, but more importantly, he notices how she seems to now value herself as a person, and he tells her that he doesn't want her to feel like she has a disability.
Last night, when Christy realized that we kept her for her talent and for her ability The smile that came across her face was unbelievable.
It is clear that Butch now feels bonded with Christy, and everything he says is true, as we have seen Christy's demeanor do a 180 now that her new tribe makes an effort to communicate clearly with her. They end up winning immunity, so we move into episode 7, which is typically time for the merge unless this is Survivor Thailand, but thankfully it is not. They do merge and become Jacare, and everyone all episode talks about how they want Roger gone. A second target isn't even seriously considered at any point in time.
You can take off your buffs and drop them. Jabiru and Tambaki are no more. New buffs, new tribe color.
At Tribal, that is how things play out, with Roger being voted out 7-3.
Roger, the tribe has spoken. It's time for you to go.
What is strange though is the episode doesn't explain this at all, but despite the love that Butch poured on Christy in episode 6, him, Roger, and Dave all vote for her with their 3 votes. Christy really becomes minimized over the next few episodes, as she hardly has any character moments or strategic moves. In episode 8, Matt is sharpening his machete a lot. It's freaking some people out, and Rob is worried that he may try to kill them.
He sits and sharpens his machete for an hour at a time. Why does he need the machete so sharp? I think he's gonna kill us.
Matt then says he won't kill them because he's a pacifist and blood scares him.
Matt is creepy. He's creepy. He's creepy.
At Tribal Council, Dave is voted out 8-1, and once again, Christy is safe and in the majority.
Dave, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 9 has Christy almost non-existent, as the only thing we see of her is how she incorrectly votes for Alex, and Dina goes home 6-2.
Dina, the tribe has spoken. It's time for you to go.
Episode 10 is a recap episode and not part of the overall story, so we slide into episode 11, where finally Christy becomes relevant to the overall narrative again. At this point, it seems like Rob, Alex, Jenna, and Heidi are the majority and they hold all of the power. Christy, Matt, and Butch are on the bottom and things seem dire for her. We see her working hard while the majority lies around acting lazy. She thankfully has seemed to learn not to berate people anymore and doesn't vocalize her displeasure to them to their face, showing real growth here.
But sometimes it's like, come on, get off your butt and go and get some wood or go and try to do something. And they just do jack.
The reward challenge is actually the Survivor auction, and Christy outbids Jenna to get her letter from home.
320, 340 to Christy. 340 to Christy. Once, twice, sold. Come get your letter from home.
Jenna then lays on the waterworks, and Jeff, in a surprising move, gives in and lets Jenna buy a letter as well, which seems very unusual that Jeff would do this since only one letter was up for sale. Back at camp, we see Christy get very emotional over the letter she receives, and Matt says Christy deserved the letter, and she has had a bumpy ride so far. He thinks Jenna was the one being selfish.
Christy deserved the letter. She's had a very bumpy ride, and I felt she deserved it. I thought Jenna was being selfish.
In the episode, we see Alex tell Rob that he says he will vote Rob out at 4 when it comes to that. Rob doesn't like this at all and works on flipping Matt, Butch, and Christy to vote Alex off.
So whatever happens at 4 happens, you know what I mean? Are you cool with that?
Rob then tells us how Christy is a sweet girl, but she doesn't really fit in, and he thinks it has probably always been like this for her with the quote-unquote popular people.
Christy is a sweet girl, but she does not fit in with this group.
He then offers her the deal of voting out Alex, and she immediately agrees.
I'm with you. I'm with you to get Alex out. Just because Alex, I could care less about him, and I just,
At Tribal Council, the flip is successful, and Alex is voted out 4-3.
Alex, tribe has spoken.
Take it easy, guys. Good luck. Good luck, dude.
Episode 12 begins with Heidi feeling on the outs after being blindsided in the last episode, and she decides to offer Christy a final 3 deal with her and Jenna. Christy does not accept the offer and seems okay with the possibility of her going home next.
What do? You know? Nothing. When we're gone, I said you're next. Probably. Next sucks.
She then talks to Rob and makes fun of Heidi and Jenna with him. She says how they've been mean to her all game, but now that they need her, they are kissing up to her and acting nice.
And she said that they've worked so much harder than you.
I don't think I've ever seen Jenna chop down a tree. We need to talk. And I'm like, so now you need to talk to me.
Christy then tells us that she has to decide whether she wants to win the $1 million or be the last woman remaining. Now, similar to Colby Donaldson, we are toying with the idea here that maybe a person's main motivation in the game of Survivor isn't to win the game.
I personally have to decide, is it better to win $1 million or is it better to be the final girl to kick butt? That's a hard decision.
At the reward challenge, Matthew wins, but he chooses to let everyone see their loved ones. Christy shows a lot of emotions when her boyfriend comes out.
Come on out, Brent.
I love you.
Back at camp, everyone's a little tipsy, and Christy gets her foot stuck in a tree.
I got my foot stuck in the tree.
Now, before the immunity challenge, Heidi once again is trying to work on Christy and convince her to join her and Jenna in a final 3 deal. But Christy straight up tells Heidi that she can't believe Heidi and Jenna. Heidi does her best to try to smooth out Christy's concerns, but Christy tells us that they only want her because she has the power. She is playing very emotionally when she should be telling them yes or working at least the other 3 people to vote out Heidi. Right now, she's sitting in the middle and she thinks she holds all the cards.
You have a good possibility in getting 1 or 2, right?
I don't know. I still can't believe about the fact that you want to put me up second, even though you guys want the money more than I do.
No.
I'm like, well, since when did you ever wanted to talk to me, you know? Just because I have the power.
Jenna wins immunity, and Rob decides he wants to go after Heidi. He approaches Christy and asks her if she is on board.
You're still gonna vote for Heidi tonight?
I guess so.
I guess so.
I don't know.
Christy says she doesn't know. She isn't sure if going with Rob or going with Heidi is best for her game to win the $1 million. She's very non-committal to Rob's face and tells him that she won't make the decision until she has a pen in her hand. And Rob concludes that it's a high possibility Christy is voting for him.
When I have the pen in my hand and that paper, that is gonna be the decision.
You're gonna vote for me, and then vote with the girls.
See, I don't know.
We then see Rob not liking this at all, and he immediately goes to Heidi and convinces Heidi and Jenna to vote with him for Christy. At Tribal, she is voted out 4-2, with only Butch voting with her.
Christy, the tribe has spoken.
So let's break this down. How is Christy as a character? She was a sympathetic hero. She had a bigger uphill battle than anyone else starting this game, and that really manifested itself in the first 2 episodes. By the time she reaches the new Tambaki tribe in episode 5, everything greatly improves for her, and her attitude is so much better. She adds a layer of depth to the season by being the first deaf person to play Survivor and getting all the way to 6th place. She showed that she was a worthwhile addition. She was very emotional in her decision making and how she thought, and what is interesting is that she swears after she's voted out that she will not vote for Heidi or Jenna to win the game, but then she votes for Jenna to win the game. At the reunion, she explains that Jenna outplayed her and she knew Jenna more than Matt, which shows that after her emotions had settled down, she was able to use logic to make her ultimate decision as a juror.
She outwit, outlasted, and outplayed me.
Out of 19 character moments shown on the show, 16 were heroic and 3 were villainous, making Christy Smith a hero on Survivor the Amazon. Now, how is Christy as a strategist? Christy was very emotional, as we've already established, and that leaked into her strategic decisions she made in this game. And while it made her an interesting character, it was a huge detriment to her strategic and social game. She could have easily been gone in the 2nd episode had Janet not been accused of sneaking food in and was voted out for that. In general, Christy wasn't really accepted by the women of Jabiru. She voted correctly 4 out of 8 times in the game, and when she thought she had the power at a time when she really didn't, it caused her to stumble and get arrogant and get voted out of the game. Out of 29 strategic moments shown on the show, 10 were smart and 19 were dumb, making Christy Smith a dumb strategist on Survivor the Amazon. Next time on Once Upon an Island, we will be weaving the tale of Jenna Maraska, the winner of Survivor the Amazon. Thanks for watching, and if you like the content you see here, then please support me and this channel on Patreon. Your financial support makes this channel possible, so thank you for watching.